welcome to the AI in Education podcast. I'm back, Ray. Hi, good to see you.
Well, Dan, we'll let you back onto the podcast, but Lee did a great job replacing you.
I
It
know
was
that was
like it was like a
fantastic.
Dan upgrade.
It was absolutely was, yeah. Dan V2. It was fantastic. I was listening in while I was midair in on my way back to Sydney from the US and Canada. So what have you been up to, Ray?
I've just been busy doing some stuff around how does leadership lead in an age of AI. So this is specifically thinking about the issue that we have, which is if you treat AI as a technology rollout, then you're missing two-thirds of what's got to happen, which is around culture change and agility and organizational innovation.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. This week's the news and research episode.
It
So
is,
I
Dan.
reckon we should start getting cracking because there's a lot going on at the minute, isn't there? Where do we start?
Okay, Dan, super big picture. So the EU AI Act came in. Now, this applies to organizations inside the EU, but obviously all the AI companies provide services inside the EU. So often the things that they might set as standards become standards that apply globally.
So hold
So
on, don't the EU already haven't we talked about the EU and AI before?
yes, but now it's in force. So
Ah,
what they
right,
did
okay.
was set some stuff up. But at the beginning of August, one of the things that comes into force is the transparency requirements, which basically mandate that you've got to label AI outputs in a series of circumstances. Matthew Weems, he has written a great guide to it. We'll put the link in the show notes with a kind of one-page
Yeah.
guide. But basically, if you are generating AI images or audio or video, then you need to label it clearly. And the second thing is, if you are generating AI writing, that now here's the wording they use, kind of like informs people about matters of public interest. And so
Hmm.
public interest is not just, it includes politics, it includes health, things that might impact consumer safety or the environment or local government. Then you've got to label it. So you can't just produce a, I don't know, a paper about something to do with health with AI, distribute it broadly without
Yeah.
saying that you've generated it with
But
AI.
but it
So I
looked
think
like
that's
there's
good.
an exemption in there, and they said if somebody with genuine subject expertise reviews it and takes responsibility for it and is accountable for it, then you don't need to label it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So, for example, if I was writing about I would say, okay, it is my expertise that is going into this, and I'm standing behind the words. So, whether I write it myself or AI generates it, I am standing behind the words. I've taken a responsibility for the content.
Yes.
That's a pretty important step. And one that I talk about often with organizations is sure, you can get AI to write something, but you're still responsible for the words.
Mm.
He's created a one-page guide in very plain English that basically gives you a decision tree around it. So if you're in the UK, it definitely applies. But if you're an education publisher or you're doing things that might impact people in Europe or is a global thing, then it's worth just understanding it. And so what that has caused is the tech companies to look at that and go, okay, so what is it that we need to do? So from the beginning of August, any new major AI model has to have that watermarking within it when it's used within the EU. So
Yeah.
what that means is the headline we saw is Anthropic. Claude will produce content from the 2nd of August in its new models that has an invisible watermark. And
Ah, hold on now.
that
So, hold on, so some of them are already watermarked. So if you're doing an image in Gemini, it puts that little kite-shaped thing on it, but
right.
invisible.
Okay, so let me explain how this watermarks works. There's two mechanisms to it. One is metadata. So that is putting a tag on a document. So for example, Dan, when you create a Word document, it puts an author tag in there that says that you created it.
Yes.
The same will happen when you're creating a document with AI. It'll just put a tag in there to say that Claude created it. But the problem with that is that I can take that off. It's a bit like when you take a picture with your phone, it records where the photo was taken, the time of day, and all that kind of stuff. But it's a very simple job to take that off.
Hmm.
So that requirement sits there. But the other step is watermarking itself. So that is putting hidden signals inside the image that you can decode to work out that it was generated with AI. So there's a system called SynthID. SynthID is created by Google DeepMind. It's used by both Google and OpenAI. So if you generate an image in Gemini and you get that little diamond in the corner,
Mm.
of course you could just edit that off. And you could edit out the metadata that's sitting in the file that says this was AI generated. But what it also does is it puts an invisible pattern across the image that we can't see, but software can see. And so that way, you kind of get to the point of, okay, so now I understand that AI generated this image because a human couldn't have created that pattern.
Got you. But like the Getty images things that you get across some of the images you get, except it's more invisible in there.
That's exactly right. And so AI companies themselves have an AI detector for those imageries, and it's based on that watermarking. I saw a brilliant example where somebody had put a poster up outside a shop, and somebody had taken a picture of the street that had the poster in it, and the AI detector was able to go, okay, the rest of the image doesn't have watermarking, but that poster, I can see the
Oh.
watermark. So I highlighted that bit and said this bit was AI generated.
Mm.
Yeah, and so it's based on invisible watermarking, not on gut feel or instinct.
Mm.
What we're now seeing is that we're now going to have that in text, which is a much more difficult thing. If it produces a document, it'll say this document was created by AI, but you'll be able to delete that metadata. It's like if you
Yeah.
copy and paste something, you can just delete the line that says that. But there will be invisible style within the writing that is recognizable. But then be able to
See how that
go to
works.
your AI of choice and it will know whether it was AI generated or not. And so it also means that that encoding will exist even if I copy and paste it or I retype that text.
Mm.
That encoding will still be there unless I'm fundamentally changing a lot of it.
This sounds like the AI detector companies are going to get onto this algorithm or this strategy to try to break our rule of AI detectors don't work, isn't it?
Right. So that's a really good point, Dan. DVDs were all encoded, so you couldn't read a DVD except with a specific decoder made by the company. And it was illegal to release the encryption key for other people to be able to decode DVDs.
Mm.
This will only work if the keys are kept by the AI company. So the only person that's going to be able to read those watermarks will be the AI
OpenAI.
company that
Yeah.
generated it. I think that's going to become really interesting, but I think it's aimed at the issue of disinformation and that honesty about AI did or didn't generate some of this stuff. It's going to be interesting from an education point of view
Mm.
because in education we tend to deal with large blocks of text. And so the patterns will show up. And even if you do draft one with AI and then you change a bunch of stuff around, it's that watermark is still going to be running through it.
Yeah, yeah, I still feel as if those hybrid situations where you do your first draft of a marketing article and then you have to redraft it, or you get the guts of it working and then you add your kind of spin on it. Yeah, who
Yeah.
knows if
And
that's going to pick it up?
so
Oh
if you
yeah,
think
yeah.
about you generate some text with AI, let's say you do your first draft with AI and then you edit it, how much of the original remains? And so if three-quarter of it is still the original and only a quarter of it is your
Mm,
edits, it's still going to show up as AI. If we do it the other way around, I write something and then I get AI to do the editing for me. Well, maybe if more than 10 or 20% of it is AI generated, that's enough to tip the balance.
yeah, yeah. It's important in certain areas of society, isn't it? I still feel as if we digging in the wrong place with this entire AI. In education, we're thinking about the efficacy assessment. That's big in the news at the minute. It's important with disinformation and things, but like it's how far you want to go down that rabbit hole to I think it's good for images and video content and which is getting much, much better. But then when you start to get a text, that's very hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that hidden watermark, which we won't see, which is a small statistical preferencing about the next word it's going to put in or the pattern of words that it uses.
Hmm.
And it's based on that algorithm for doing that being secret.
But I'd like to know who, yeah, I'd like to know more about that and if the people are going to research that and understand it because you don't want false positives and you don't want people being blamed for things that might not be. actually accurate, but who knows? Are we going to
Yeah.
say AI detectors don't work yet? No, let's not. But
Well,
it is an interesting piece
it's
of
interesting because, yeah, I don't think AI detectors work, but watermarking might work. It's an interesting journey ahead of us. Will it cause less stress for students? Probably, because statistically, I think it'll be much, much more accurate. And you're not going to end up with the pattern showing in normal human writing, whereas at the moment it's based on particular styles of writing and choices of
Mm.
words and things like that.
I still worry about that editing part, but I think that's a very common use of AI at the minute where people will use it for a first draft and then they might still ping things through. But yeah,
I,
let's see how it
I,
goes. So what's next
well,
on the news?
yeah, well, let me just talk about how I use AI at the moment. I am moving away from using it for writing because I
Mm.
have written stuff with AI. Instead, I am using it to help me with the thinking and the structuring. So I might give it a whole load of stuff and go, how can I structure this? And I will then do the writing, but I might be using its suggestions on structure. I'll also use it for reviewing, so
Mm.
I'm pretty happy saying to it, I've written this, tell me what you think. Do I get my message across? This is what I want people to get from it. It's good at doing that kind of stuff. In the same way that I would go and ask a colleague to read something for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I don't think that's cheating in any
Mm.
way. But
Mm.
yeah, I'm using it for work, not for assignments and exams.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so what's next on the news? OpenAI announces new plugins for ChatGPT.
If you are using ChatGPT Education, that's the account given to you by your organization,
Yeah.
or if you're in the US and you're using the free version, ChatGPT for Teachers, then they've added some plugins that are designed for school teachers, college, i.e., university educators, and university students. And they're programmed up with like the Learning Commons data so that it's set for a specific curriculum context. And the plugging is there to help you do things like academic planning, packaging stuff up to go into an LMS. That's really helpful, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because how painful is that when you kind of like you've written some great resources, like, oh, now it needs to be in the LMS.
Yeah.
Now you can say, create me the SCORM package and then just hit
Okay.
upload.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So yeah, that's available. That's a free. I think it's showing that more move towards rather than just a generic tool, how they can do something specific for
Yeah.
education. We've still got a long way to go on this journey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now the next bit's like been buzzing around in my LinkedIn feed for a while, and I think it all started historically. And apologies for the overseas listeners, but I think Jason Clare thinks the education minister in Australia federally, and he did an opinion piece. I think it was last week about iStakes testing and HSC exams and AI and technology. And since then, there's been this kind of ripple effect down into the ministerial arena, I suppose, where Prue Carr's come out. She's in New South Wales, has come out and talked about it now, and so has multiple other people. And then Jason Lodge and Danny Liu have swaved in on this as well. So, have you got any thoughts about that? And what was your take on that generally in the ecosystem?
So let's just start with a bit of a history lesson. Both you and I, Dan, have worked in the education technology field for many decades.
Mm.
And we have seen probably some projects that work really well, and we've seen some projects that didn't work so well. And often the dividing line is, well, what was the intended purpose? So if I think about the digital education revolution in Australia, that was handing out $2.8 billion worth of computers to schools. And the metric of success is, have we handed out enough free computers? Not, has it changed learning? Not, have exam results improved? It was, have we shifted enough computers to
Mm.
enough schools? And so, surprise, surprise, learning didn't change because it was never the intention and it was never measured. The question is, as AI gets used more and more, are we facing a risk of having a similar problem? Jason Lodge sums it up really well. He wrote a great article. We'll put the link in the show notes. He's the director of learning, instruction, and technology lab and a professor of educational psychology at the University of Queensland School of Education. So
Mm.
he's a really
He's
level-headed
good.
person about both education and technology.
Mm.
And so his conclusion is we need to have a national coordinated evidence informed conversation about the role of AI in education. Because let's face it, We have been pushed by the fact that AI exists outside of education and that has impacted inside education. Because a student or a teacher can use a consumer version of a technology, it suddenly has an impact inside the classroom.
Okay, that's a fair lens on it, and the fact that it's gone so quickly, teachers have picked this up, and often, it's through the kind of lowest common denominator. They go, "Oh, I need to do this resource. This is brilliant. This works really well," and it's been an easy to use, easy technology to get use of straight away in the
Yeah.
classroom to have an impact, right?
And Dan, this has happened before, when schools used to teach with a quill pen and somebody invented the biro, they thought that it was going to send learning backwards because students could write really quickly without learning the basic skills of making ink. And then when the calculator was invented, exactly the same problem. It's like, well, students aren't going to learn how to do maths anymore because they can just put numbers into a calculator. So in one sense, we've been here before. The difference is AI clearly has an effect on our cognitive abilities, our thinking capacity. Because if you ship too much of your thinking off to AI, you're kind of losing that muscle of doing it yourself. And so what has happened is a couple of things. In New South Wales, the education minister has written to the exam board in the state and said, I would like you to stop take-home assessments as part of the formal examination process as soon as possible.
Yes.
Now, I don't think other exam boards have said this elsewhere in the world. I'm not aware of it. And there's still a lot of take-home assessments happening in the UK system and the US system. But it's an interim measure to, okay, what are we going to do about making assessment AI proof? And it isn't about, it's about making sure that students are learning still. Because if you give the job off to AI, you're not learning, just giving the job off to AI. And that's the challenge. In South Australia, which is another state in Australia, they have announced the Royal Commission. So that's like a big and official inquiry into the role of AI in certain areas. And that includes education, it includes healthcare and things like that. And it's that society moment of, is this helping us move forward? We didn't have that really around social media at the outset of social media because we couldn't understand the consequences. But it's great that we're stepping in early with a conversation about this. And it is not about technology management. It is about what is the impact on some of the services that the government provides or that consumers and citizens use, and how do we handle the presence of AI in those things?
There's a good comment here from Prukar that came out, and it was that artificial intelligence has enormous potential to support teaching and learning, but it should never replace the thinking, creativity, and hard work that education is designed to develop. The purpose of schooling extends beyond producing an assessment task, is to build knowledge, judgment, resilience, critical thinking over time.
Yeah,
I love that.
that's it. That's exactly it. The point of many of the assessments is to prove that the learning has happened. And if you bypass the assessment by getting AI to do it, you can't prove that the learning has happened.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's good. It is a conversation that needs to be had. I don't know how you are going to regulate these things in a world where the technology is moving so fast, but let's just live with the complexity.
It is creating though for school leaders, system leaders, parents. It's creating now confusion, which means that you have to really be thinking as a school leader what your implementation of any of this AI technology is to make sure that you're bringing everybody along with you, or when you're choosing and when you're not choosing to do certain technologies. It's difficult, especially in Australia when things are now starting to get fragmented and ministers talking and giving different types of rhetoric and often different types of instructions on what to do. So it makes it quite hard. I do feel for school leaders at the minute.
Okay, so let's just step back a second. I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago about things I think we believe. Like
Yeah.
from a podcast point of view, there are things that we've talked about. I'm not sure we've ever stated them as beliefs, but I think we both believe them, and we can pretty fairly say these are deep-seated beliefs
Yes.
we have on the podcast. So let me check these with you. One of them is I think we believe AI shouldn't replace teachers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, I think we also think the role of a teacher might change
Mm.
because AI might be able to do some of the knowledge delivery stage, But I still think the role of the teacher is critical because it'll change a bit, but that relationship with the student is key.
That's
The
absolutely right.
creating motivation for learners, I'm not sure that AI can do that in a consistent way, especially for unmotivated learners.
Yes, and beyond the curriculum and beyond the assessment tasks, there's a lot more the teachers do to drive and develop human beings than just curriculum content.
Yeah,
So yeah,
great.
absolutely.
So anytime I see somebody saying AI might replace teachers, I've got a visceral reaction, which is, no, you're wrong. The role of a teacher might change, but AI will not be replacing teachers.
Mm,
Okay. The second belief I think we both have is that the essential human skills and attributes, we're not quite sure what they are that outlive the age of AI. It's not just about IQ anymore. It's about some of the EQ things. And while we don't understand what they are, we're getting closer to understanding what they are. Like, I
yes.
believe that's true, isn't it? We both believe that. Oh, and the other thing we believe is that AI detectors don't work yet.
Yeah, yeah, and that's been fostered by lots of the people we've talked to on the podcast from the skilling
Mm,
areas. It's fascinating to kind of think about what Pazzi talked about with human flourishing. So yeah, this is a conversation, right? And it is important for our listeners as well to also remember that we are interviewing people that are doing pro AI stuff, but also we're trying to be balanced and think about the things that AI are impacting on society, and we're trying to bring those stories to life as well.
brilliant. So that brings in the human flourishing thing that I think we've talked about quite a bit. So Australia is reviewing its national teaching standards for the first time in years. And Kelly Illich has written an article in AARE, so that's an Australian research publication for education,
Yeah.
that kind of says the fundamental question is, what is education actually for in the age of AI?
Wow.
Because if a large language model can deliver curriculum content and it can generate lesson plans and it can offer personalized explanations, then what? What are
Mm.
teaching standards for? What is the role of teaching? Because having a data profile and being able to customize things down to that data profile, well, that's not a relationship. That's a content delivery thing. And so it's a
Mm.
really
Yep.
good article because it's about the teacher's role. It's got to shift from what Kelly describes as being a transmitter of information to being a
Mm.
designer, interpreter, an ethical steward of knowledge. And so I think that goes along with our line about AI should not replace teachers, but the role of teaching might change. So
Yeah.
it's a really good article and it begs important questions about what the role is and what kind of education do you need for a world where AI exists in the
Yeah, and
future.
importantly, that's embedding it into the standards and the professional standards of teachers, which is really important across the very different countries. You have to have standards in place, like you have for professional standards for engineers and lawyers and whatever it might be. So doing it at core level makes it a lot more meaningful and impactful. Now, the next piece of news, it was a green paper called Education in the Age of AI from Danny and Adam at the University of Sydney.
Yeah, so Danny Liu and Adam Bridgman were on the podcast a couple of years ago talking about what they were
Hmm.
doing and everything they've been doing around cogniting and driving AI forward and their approach to assessment at the university.
Oh,
Here's
no,
here's
before we
the
start, green paper rather than white paper as a help.
no idea, Dan. No idea
Okay.
what the difference is. I think green paper is I'm going to chuck it out for people to have an opinion. White paper is we've decided what our opinion is.
Okay, cool.
And I'm sure Danny will email me and tell me I'm wrong.
Yes.
I was going to put if in the sentence, but I don't think there's any doubt there's no if there. Okay, so here's the opener. It says universities often talk about preparing students for the future.
Yeah.
The challenge with AI is that it is no longer the future. Our students are already living, studying, and trying to find employment in the age of AI. And then they go on to say AI is already changing the capabilities that employers value and that increasingly demand. It's raising expectations for judgment, creativity, communication, ethical responsibility, and adaptability alongside technology capability. Yeah,
Right.
so sure, as an employer, I'll be assessing graduates and going, great, I know you've got these technical skills, but do you also have the judgment, the communication, the collaboration skills that are
Yeah.
needed?
On top of
And
that.
so, we're back to the 21st century skills or foundational skills or human skills or whatever you want them to be.
Mm.
And if you recall, University of Sydney had their two-lane assessment approach.
Yes.
I only learned
That's right.
last week it's officially called the Sydney Assessment Framework.
Right.
But they know that assessment is only the start of the problem solving. You've got to work out how to keep assessment of students' learning robust, but you've also got to be having a question about what the purpose of education is to deliver against the requirements of the future.
Wow. Well, that's available for direct download, isn't it? So we'll put the notes in the show notes there. And, Danny and Adam are obviously leading the way again and putting things out there. I think it's really important to keep looking at these papers as we go through to kind of crystallize our thinking with assessment and AI.
Yeah, and it's focused on higher education, but I actually think it links to things going on in the school space as well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there was a research paper that was published this week called Young People Learning and Generative AI. And Danny was involved in that, but actually it was a bunch of lead researchers from the University of Sydney. It was funded by the Barker Institute. So Barker College is a school in Sydney that has a separate institute looking at young people
Yeah,
and
that's
learning.
fantastic. Yeah.
And I think it's a really great paper to read alongside the what should education look like in the age of AI.
Yeah.
One is a
Did you
university
make the
centered.
call yesterday? It was a call yesterday, wasn't it? They did a webinar, didn't they?
Yeah, no, I joined a webinar talking about the paper. It reinforced what's in the paper. So let me tell you about the paper. What they did was they looked at papers on AI in education to try and identify what the messages are out of them. So they looked at 274 research papers that were published between 2022 and this June to understand the impact of generative AI on the education of children and teenagers.
Right.
Okay. And this is really important because this is the research that didn't exist. I was actually talking to a researcher last week and we were talking about the fact that this didn't exist. It's like, well, maybe we should write it because we have talked about 300 research papers on the podcast, but what we've never done is summarize them all together. This is doing that work, but it's doing it by only looking at research that has been peer reviewed and is about school students, because a lot of the research is about university students.
Universities. Yeah.
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 And so here's what they found. So basically, AI can help students be more engaged and it can help improve their immediate performance in writing, math, science, and coding. But there's a really important catch, that word immediate. Yeah. Doing something better with AI isn't exactly the same as learning better.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you get AI to write your assignment for you, you're demonstrating that you can produce a finished piece of work. You aren't demonstrating that you've learned.
Yeah.
And so what they have done is kind of start to work through the evidence about the ways that AI helps and the way AI might harm in that process.
Okay.
And they kind of basically said, we shouldn't be asking whether students should or shouldn't use AI. We should be asking what thinking the student is still doing when they're using AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's fair, isn't it? That's
when
good.
AI is helping students to reason, explain, and practice, and it's encouraging them to use those skills, then it's helpful. But if it just gives them the answer, then it's not helpful.
Yeah, which you've seen before in the thing, but they're bringing that together across all those research papers.
Okay, so key findings. AI often improves immediate performance because a student can complete a task more successfully and produce better work when they have AI assistance.
Tick.
But better performance isn't necessarily better learning, because you can produce a polished AI assisted essay doesn't mean that you actually can do that independently without the help of AI later.
Good.
The third key finding I kind of felt was they kind of say students generally like learning with AI. So there is a bunch of research that reports that when AI is involved, students have got more interest, they're more motivated, and they're more engaged, and they are less anxious.
Yes,
But,
you've seen
does
that.
enjoying
Yep.
something meaning you're learning something? I enjoy roller coasters. Doesn't mean I'm enjoying learning stuff about physics. Then they go on to say, and this is really important alongside those three key findings, is the danger is AI becomes a crutch. So they
Mm.
talk about one major math study where 1,000 students were given unrestricted access to AI, and during practice, their performance improved. But once the AI was taken away, they were then worse than the students that never had AI in the first place. We've talked
Yeah.
about that research too. It is not a surprise, I think, to any of us that that happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we've got to face up to that and then go, well, how do you solve that? And you solve that by having a properly built AI tutor instead of an answer bot.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
There's some hidden things in here as well that I noticed in the show notes that you put together here
Mm.
about the fact that they also found that it adds cognitive load.
Yeah.
Because people are thinking about AI all the time and thinking, should I use AI? Shouldn't I use AI? Where can I use AI? So that might be kind of interesting. And maybe that AI makes it slightly less convenient to support them with their learning. But really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, if you've got an awkward AI that doesn't just answer the question for you, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, which you've seen through some of the Socrative bots that have been created in Australia.
Yeah, yeah. And so a couple of nice quotes in it. A stronger answer, more polished text, or a higher score achieved with the support of Gen AI is not evidence that students have developed knowledge or capabilities they can retain, transfer, or use in an environment without Gen AI. I.e., because they can pass the test with AI doesn't mean they can do it without. Because they
Yeah.
can produce an answer with AI doesn't mean they can do it without. We all know that. But if you want the quote, it's on page 19 in the paper. I am sure that's going to turn up in people's slides in the future. The other thing that's really interesting in page 20, there's a really nice little quote. Students may misjudge how much they are learning with Gen AI.
Mm, that is
So
interesting.
this
Yeah.
is this bit where there's some evidence they found in the research papers that students think they are learning and they are not.
Mm,
And then there's one even shorter quote, which is there is no single Gen AI effect. So if you're one of the people that says Gen AI is bad, or you're saying that Gen AI is good, you're both in the wrong camp, because the answer is it sometimes it is bad, sometimes it is good. It depends on how it's used, how it behaves,
yeah.
how it gets involved in the relationship with the student.
There is no single Gen AI effect. I love that one.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
last piece of research, you think? Let me read it out.
F-
It's called Hybrid Reading Practices, How Gen AI Summarizers Can Support Rather Than Replace Learning or Reading. Oh, I read that out and I got two words wrong, Ray. You'll have to tell us what this is about.
Dan, we should replace you with the Gen AI summarizer.
You know I'm not Gen AI now, and there's no point in even trying the transparency detector on me, the watermarking.
Okay, so this research is from the team down at Deakin Cradle. I think I called them the Cradle Mafia in the
Oh
last
wow.
episode, which was meant in a loving way.
Yeah,
So Thomas Corbin, Margaret Bierman, Tim Fawns, and that team down from the Cradle team and Deakin
brilliant.
University, they've been doing great work in this area. Again, this is focused on higher education students, so university students. What they did was they interviewed 24 philosophy students and found that although some students used AI as a shortcut, most used it to help them tackle difficult readings rather than to avoid readings. So I've got a really difficult thing to read. I might use AI to give me a bit of an overview before I pile into it in order to help me read it better.
Mm.
Or to explain confusing titles. I think I could use that for some research papers.
Yeah, yeah.
I definitely use AI for this. The other thing they said is they often use it to translate difficult academic language into plain English.
Mm.
We all need that.
Yeah.
And they're also using it to do things like they read something, then they want to check that they have understood the author's arguments correctly. So this
Mm.
is really interesting because we might say some of these uses are bad, but this is how students are using it.
Mm.
And they
Yeah.
argue stop thinking about this as good or bad uses for reading. Instead, recognize that there's some hybrid reading practices going on. And they
Mm.
talk about four practices. One is orientation, get an overview before you read something, clarifying, explaining difficult concepts, translating, simplifying complex or overly academic or old fashioned language, and then cross-checking, like
Mm.
comparing an AI explanation with their own
Yeah.
understanding. Now,
Mm.
Dan, do you use AI in these modes?
Yeah, 100%. Often, when you're reading a lot of things and you're time poor, you do orientation where you're trying to get an overview of an article before you go into it deeply, or I'll get an overview and then save that to read it later on. Often, yeah, sometimes you need that explanation and that translation to understand the concept a little bit more, just to give you a
Mm.
bit of an idea, but I do take that with a pinch of salt. How about yourself? Do you do that?
Yeah, so I use the phrase ELI 16, explain it like I'm 16. So it will explain a concept in a more simple way and use appropriate language. So I do
Mm.
that because sometimes, I'm sorry, but academic language I feel is designed to obscure information rather than clarify it. I also use it for analysis. So, for example, if I'm reading a research paper and it quotes another research paper, often I'll jump into AI and go, hey, go find that other paper and tell me whether it supports this statement.
Mm. Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 absolutely.
I couldn't go and read another 20-page report in order to check
Mm.
if this single sentence or these three sentences are correct. But you'd be
Mm.
amazed at how many times people make a factual assertion that a particular document or paper says one thing, turns out it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's
So I
true
use
because
it for that
they're in
kind
it.
of
Yeah,
analysis, and then I will add. I will take something and then go, look, I'm thinking of using this analogy. Do those things work together? Because I want to talk about this paper in a way that isn't complex.
yeah, and the
So,
bit I think they're missing in there is just the gaps part because I use things like that for gaps a lot. I'm messaging this particular thing for parents.
yep,
Where's the gaps? What am I
yeah,
missing? What am I missing in this particular concept? It's not reading as such, but it's reading my own work and looking for gaps in there or looking for gaps in things that have been made. So it's not necessarily reading, but I think it's quite an interesting concept.
it's a bit like entertainment move from watching a TV program to watching a TV program while you had your phone open with the Twitter feed. Do you remember
Yeah, that's right.
Eurovision?
Yeah,
Eurovision was improved by watching what people were saying on
yes,
Twitter alongside
that's
watching
right.
the
Yeah.
broadcast. I think we're seeing that same model. What it's suggesting is we're seeing a model of reading, which is there's something sitting alongside your reading, doing a little bit of a task with you. And
Mhm.
this is exploring the way that students are using it. So I think this is useful because it's explaining what is happening, not saying what should happen.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, there's been a lot of research here today and lots of news, and hopefully this has been a useful episode for everybody. Thanks again, as always, Ray, for digging a lot of these things out. I'll be back on form as well, adding more detail to this in the next one. But I appreciate everybody and Lee for joining us last week as well. It was a phenomenal episode, so thank you so much. Oh, was it the week before last? When was
Two
it? Yeah,
weeks
it was
ago, yeah.
it was last week.
Yeah.
Ah, my
And I
time's
feel,
flying.
Dan,
Yeah.
we may have rambled in the middle about some of the things we're talking about. I will maybe have edited out some of the rambling. So if this is a 20-minute episode, then you've got the highlight version. If this is a 50-minute episode, then I ran out of edited time. Sorry. See you next week.
Thanks, Ray. Cheers.